The night cracked open with thunder as Adrian stood upon the shattered courtyard, his sword trembling in his hand while his heart ached for Seraphina. She whispered, "Do not let them take me," her voice breaking like glass beneath the storm. The sky raged with violet lightning, casting shadows across broken stone, as Lysandra's laughter echoed in cruel delight. The prophecy burned in Adrian's mind, a curse that bound him to lose what he loved most. Seraphina reached out, her eyes pleading, while the enemy dragged her back into darkness. Adrian screamed her name, his voice tearing through the storm, yet he knew Destiny's grip was already closing. In that fleeting instant, the world seemed to end, and his soul shattered with her absence. Adrian wandered through the ruins of the courtyard, his body trembling with exhaustion, but his mind drowned in guilt. He whispered, "I should have saved her," though the storm had long since quieted. The silence was worse than thunder, pressing against his chest like stone. Shadows danced on the edges of broken pillars, whispering memories of Seraphina's eyes. He clenched his fist until blood ran from his palm, a vow etched in pain. The prophecy haunted him. Love would be his undoing. Still, he swore to defy fate. He vowed he would fight to find her, no matter the cost, even if destiny itself shattered before him. Seraphina sat in the darkness of a cell, her wrists bruised by iron chains. She whispered Adrian's name, her voice shaking with both fear and longing. The walls pressed in, cold and damp, carrying whispers of curses older than memory. She remembered his face in the lightning, his desperate cry, and the warmth of his hand almost touching hers. She closed her eyes and swore to herself, "I will not break." Yet deep in her chest, she feared the prophecy was already unraveling. Her heart ached with love, but the weight of destiny pressed harder still. Lysandra stood in her tower chamber, the storm now calm beyond her windows. She gazed into a crystal pool, Seraphina's reflection flickering like a caged flame. Her lips curled in satisfaction. "Fate bends to me," she whispered. Her hands moved gracefully over runes carved into black stone, the magic pulsing red. She saw Adrian's face etched in the water, rage and despair burning, and she laughed softly, a predator savoring the hunt. Yet a shadow passed through her eyes, a trace of fear she would not name. The prophecy promised her victory, but it also whispered of betrayal. From the shadows of the ruins, Kalen emerged, a sly grin beneath his rain-soaked hood. He carried no sword, yet his presence lingered like smoke. He chuckled, "You're chasing storms again, Adrian." His tone teased, yet his eyes betrayed loyalty. Adrian turned sharply, pain and anger flickering. Kalen raised his hands. "You'll need me. You always do." Though often dismissed as a fool, Kalen's wit was sharper than steel. In his chest, fear stirred, but his loyalty to Adrian outweighed his doubts. The sidekick had no illusions, yet he swore to stand by his friend's side, no matter the cost. Adrian moved silently through the misty forest, every step weighted with regret yet sharpened with resolve. Kalen trailed beside him, his grin hiding unease as he muttered, "You know, chasing her means chasing death." Adrian's eyes burned with storm-gray fire. "I would walk into death itself for her," he answered. The trees whispered, their branches heavy with dripping rain, as if the world itself mourned Seraphina's capture. A faint shimmer of light danced ahead, and Adrian's heart clenched. Seraphina appeared, bound but defiant, her eyes catching his even through distance. The prophecy hung between them, silent but unyielding. Seraphina was marched through the forest by armored guards, her chains clinking softly, yet she walked with her head held high, her spirit unbroken. She whispered to herself, "Adrian will find me." The memory of his desperate scream still echoed in her chest. The path twisted, shadows curling like serpents between the trees, while unseen eyes followed her. Fear gnawed at her heart, but her gaze burned with defiance. She knew Lysandra's schemes sought to break her, but she refused to surrender to despair. Hope, fragile as flame in the storm, kept her alive with every step. Kalen paused, crouching near a fallen log, his fingers brushing faint tracks. "They've passed through here," he said, his usual smirk fading. Adrian knelt beside him, eyes narrowing, recognizing Seraphina's delicate imprint in the mud. His heart thudded painfully, half hope and half rage. "She's close," Adrian murmured, voice cracking with desperation. The forest was silent, but for the drip of rain, each drop echoing like a clock counting down to destiny. Kaelin straightened, forcing a grin. "Well then, let's ruin someone's morning." The tension between dread and determination stretched like a bowstring ready to snap. Lysandra stood in a clearing, the air heavy with enchantment. She raised her crimson-stained dagger, and runes flared across the earth in a circle of fire. Her voice dripped with venom as she whispered, "Fate is mine to command." The guards dragged Seraphina into the circle, forcing her to kneel. Seraphina glared upward, her eyes bright with defiance. "You cannot break us," she hissed. Lysandra smirked, her dark hair swirling with the rising heat, the storm of power answering her command. Clearings shimmered, reality bending, as the prophecy's weight pressed down like chains of fire. Adrian burst from the trees, his sword gleaming in stormlight, Kaelin close at his side. "Release her!" Adrian roared, his voice slicing the enchanted air. The ground trembled as Lysandra turned, her eyes burning with cruel delight. Seraphina gasped, hope flickering in her chest. Chains rattled as she reached toward him. Those soldiers held her fast. Adrian's gaze locked with hers, the world narrowing to that single moment. The prophecy loomed like a shadow, whispering doom, yet their hearts beat louder. Kaelin muttered, "This is madness," but raised his dagger all the same, ready to fight for love. From the shadows of the clearing, a figure emerged, cloaked in sorrow and steel. It was Darius, once a hero, now a ghost of his former self. Adrian froze, his storm-gray eyes narrowing in disbelief. "You," Adrian whispered, his voice jagged with old pain. Darius smirked bitterly, his blade dripping with enchantment. "Did you think fate would spare me?" The memory of brotherhood and betrayal clashed in Adrian's heart. Seraphina's gasp broke the silence, her emerald eyes brimming with shock. Darius stepped forward, torn between regret and cruelty, and the air grew heavy with unspoken truths and broken oaths. The clash was not of swords, but of hearts broken long before. Adrian shouted, "You swore to protect us." His voice cut through the storm like steel. Darius' eyes flickered with shame before hardening into stone. "Anyone who is struck by or examined etc. Therefore Harald." "And I was cast aside," he spat, his bitterness swallowing regret. Kaelin shifted uneasily, his dagger raised but his wit silenced. Seraphina cried, "This isn't you, Darius." Yet his silence carried the weight of betrayal. The prophecy hummed in the ground, its curse feeding on their despair. Bonds of friendship burned into ashes, leaving only the bitter taste of destiny's cruelty. The ground trembled as another figure appeared, shifting like smoke into shape. It was Celine, the shapeshifter, her form twisting between faces until settling on one of haunting beauty. "Who do you trust now?" she whispered, her voice melodic yet dangerous. Adrian stiffened, rage clashing with confusion. Kaelin cursed under his breath, his hand tightening on his dagger. Seraphina's breath hitched, fear and doubt entwining. Celine's eyes gleamed with secrets, her smile both alluring and poisonous. The storm above mirrored the chaos within, thunder echoing the fragile thread of trust unraveling with every heartbeat. High on the cliff above the clearing, Master Eldrin watched, his ancient eyes weary with sorrow. He leaned on his staff, the weight of prophecy bending his shoulders. "Threads are unraveling," he murmured, voice trembling with grief. The wind tore at his cloak as he descended, his presence bringing a hush to the storm. Adrian turned, relief mingling with fear. "Master, tell me how to stop this," he pleaded. Eldrin's gaze darkened. "The cost is greater than you know." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the despair etched into his weathered face. His wisdom felt like a curse. The storm quieted just enough for hearts to speak louder than thunder. Adrian's eyes locked with Seraphina's, and for a moment, the world vanished. I will not lose you, he vowed, voice ragged with truth. She reached her chained hands toward him, whispering, even if fate damns us, my heart is yours. The prophecy burned in silence, daring them to defy its grip. Around them, enemies closed in, but their love carved a fragile sanctuary amid despair. Kaelin muttered, you two are impossible, though even he fought a smile. In that stolen instant, love shone brighter than doom. The storm gave way to a crimson dusk, and Adrian stood before the shattered ruins of an ancient temple. The stones pulsed faintly with light, as though secrets long buried waited to awaken. His hand trembled as he pressed against the altar, the carvings glowing beneath his touch. Eldrin's voice carried softly, the truth of your blood cannot be hidden forever. Adrian staggered back, his storm-gray eyes wide in disbelief. He whispered, I am bound to this curse. The weight of his heritage crashed upon him, a destiny older than his heart, yet rooted in his very veins. Seraphina sat in her cell, her emerald eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She touched her chest, whispering words of power she barely understood. Memories of her mother's lullabies returned, ancient melodies entwined with magic. She gasped as warmth surged through her veins, a secret heritage unfolding. I am not only a prisoner, she whispered, her voice shaking. I am the flame they fear. Chains rattled as she closed her eyes, summoning courage from the depths of her bloodline. Though her body remained bound, her spirit ignited with a strength that Lysandra could not shatter. In the depths of the forest, Lysandra carved her magic into the earth with ruthless precision. Her daggers sliced across black soil as flames rose from runes, their light reflecting in her raven-dark eyes. She whispered, they believe love is their strength. It will become their doom. Shadows stretched, responding to her command. Soldiers knelt in obedience, their faces blank, entranced by her spell. She lifted her hands to the sky, crimson robes swirling, as the prophecy's curse thickened like smoke. Yet deep within her smirk, a flicker of unease betrayed that even she feared the storm she conjured. Kaelin stumbled into the ruins, panting from the chase, his smirk replaced with grim resolve. You're not the only one chasing ghosts, he muttered. Adrian turned, eyes dark with storm, his hand trembling over the glowing altar. Kaelin forced a laugh, though fear glimmered beneath. I may be useless with prophecies, but I'll never leave you to face them alone. Adrian's lips twitched with gratitude, though his face remained haunted. In that fragile moment, their bond felt unbreakable. Carved not by destiny but by loyalty. The storm above rumbled as if mocking their fragile defiance. The truth struck like lightning. Eldrin's voice carried through the temple. The prophecy binds you both, yet it also offers your only hope. Seraphina's voice echoed in Adrian's mind, her spirit reaching across chains and distance. We are stronger than destiny, she whispered, though she was far away. Adrian's heart surged with fire and grief, his storm-gray eyes blazing. Kaelin gripped his shoulder, muttering, then let's break fate together. For the first time, Adrian felt the storm within him was not his curse but his weapon. The temple trembled as ancient magic awakened, shifting the balance of destiny. The temple shook as the truth burned through the silence. Eldrin's voice trembled with finality. The curse is not upon one of you, but upon both. Adrian staggered, his storm-gray eyes widening with horror. Seraphina's chains rattled miles away, her emerald eyes glowing faintly, as if she heard the words across the veil. Bound by love, cursed by fate, Eldrin whispered, his staff crackling with dying light. Adrian clenched his fists, despair clashing with defiance. Then fate will learn to bleed, he growled. The prophecy shifted, no longer a warning but a sentence, carved into the bones of destiny itself. Darius stepped from the storm, his presence heavy with tragedy. His armor dripped with blood not his own, and his blue eyes burned with torment. Adrian's hand tightened on his sword, but Darius raised his palm. I did not come to fight, he said, though his voice cracked. I came to remind you of what love can cost. Memories of brotherhood flickered between them, shattered by betrayal yet aching for redemption. Seraphina's name trembled on Darius' lips, She was my light too, he confessed, his voice shaking. Silence fell, heavy with grief and fury, as the past clawed at their hearts. Celine slinked from the shadows, her form rippling like smoke before solidifying into beauty. He is not your enemy, she purred, silver hair gleaming in the stormlight. Adrian's jaw clenched, his sword unwavering. You twist truths into poison, he spat. Celine smiled faintly, her shifting gray eyes unreadable. And yet, I offer survival. Kalen stepped forward, his smirk sharp with disbelief. Forgive me if I don't trust the one who changes faces. Celine's eyes flickered with something almost human. Sorrow, perhaps. I too am bound by fate, she whispered. The storm rumbled, echoing the chaos of trust shattered in silence. In the heart of the forest, Lysandra raised her crimson dagger, chanting with venom. The earth split as fire roared upward, soldiers kneeling in submission. Her laughter rang like thunder, cruel and triumphant. Their love will be their ruin, she declared. Her eyes gleamed with hunger for power, yet shadows trembled at the edge of her magic, whispering betrayal. She tightened her grip, ignoring the tremor in her own heart. Seraphina was dragged forward, her emerald eyes fierce, even as chains cut into her skin. You cannot win, Seraphina hissed, and for the first time doubt flickered in Lysandra's gaze. The prophecy's truth tore the night apart. Eldrin's voice thundered. The bond you share is not a curse. It is the weapon the world fears. Adrian's heart surged, torn between despair and hope. Seraphina's eyes widened, her soul burning with defiance. Lysandra snarled, her power faltering, while Darius lowered his sword, grief shadowing his face. Celine's gray eyes softened as if truth pierced even her walls. Kalen muttered, Well, that changes everything. Adrian stepped forward, sword raised, his storm-gray eyes alight. Then love will be our salvation, he swore. The storm above split open, destiny shifting with a roar. The storm erupted in fury as steel clashed with fire. Adrian charged into the ritual circle, his sword gleaming with lightning's reflection. Seraphina broke her chains with a cry of defiance, emerald light blazing from her hands. Lysandra shrieked, crimson magic whipping like serpents through the air. Darius stepped forward, torn between loyalty and betrayal, his blade raised in conflict. Kalen darted like a shadow, striking soldiers with clever precision. Celine shifted forms mid-step, her face flickering between ally and foe. Above them, thunder roared like the prophecy itself demanding blood. The final battle had begun, and destiny trembled. Eldrin raised his staff, his voice carrying over the storm. You must choose what love demands, sacrifice or salvation. His gray eyes glowed with ancient power, his body trembling with the strain. Adrian shouted, Tell me how to break it. Lightning cracked as Eldrin's staff split, the wood crumbling beneath his grip. By giving what you fear to lose most, he gasped, collapsing to his knees. Seraphina cried out, No, as his form bent under the weight of prophecy. His final words drifted through the storm. The bond is your salvation, and your doom. With that, the mentor fell, silent. Lysandra's laughter pierced the storm, her dagger blazing crimson. Love cannot save you, she taunted, magic striking like fire serpents. Adrian shielded Seraphina, sword meeting flame with sparks. Seraphina pressed her palms together, emerald light blooming into a shield that wrapped around them both. Kalen shouted, Don't burn me alive, please, as he tumbled aside, dodging soldiers. Celine shifted again, her midnight cloak melting into armor as she struck a soldier down. Darius advanced, torn expression etched in his scar. Seraphina gasped, We fight together. Her voice thundered louder than the storm, defiance sparking hope in all. Darius raised his sword high, eyes filled with torment. Adrian faced him, every heartbeat heavy with grief. Choose, brother, Adrian shouted, lightning splitting the sky. Darius' blade trembled as if weighed by ghosts. Seraphina's voice rang out, sharp with sorrow, You still have light in you. For a heartbeat, hope shone in his blue eyes before despair devoured it. With a roar he struck, not at Adrian, but at the soldiers holding Seraphina. Chains shattered as his blade cleaved through iron. His chest heaved with ragged breaths. "This is my redemption," he whispered, before darkness claimed him. Thorn reached its peak as Adrian and Seraphina stood side by side, their powers entwined. Adrian's sword blazed with emerald light, Seraphina's magic flowing into his blade. Lysandra screamed, crimson fire lashing in fury. "You cannot rewrite fate," she cried, her eyes wild with desperation. Adrian shouted, "Then we'll burn fate itself." Together, they struck, their love blazing brighter than prophecy's curse. The circle exploded in a shockwave of light, thunder roaring as soldiers were hurled aside. Lysandra staggered, her power unraveling. In that moment, love had defied destiny, though the cost still lingered in the air. Silence followed the storm, broken only by the hiss of dying embers. Adrian stood among the ruins, his sword lowered, his breath ragged. Bodies lay scattered, shadows of a battle that carved scars into destiny. Seraphina's emerald gaze found his, her hands trembling yet glowing faintly with lingering power. "We survived," she whispered, though her voice carried sorrow as much as hope. Kale leaned forward, smirking despite blood on his cheek. "Barely." The air still smelled of lightning and ash. Destiny's curse had not vanished, but for the first time, Adrian felt the storm within him steady into resolve. Seraphina knelt beside Darius, his body broken yet his face softened in death. Her emerald eyes shimmered with tears as she whispered, "You found your light at last." Adrian's throat tightened, memories of brotherhood pulling him down. He touched Darius' shoulder, storm-gray eyes dark with grief. "May the storm carry you home," he murmured. Even Kalen bowed his head, silence replacing his usual jests. Celine stood at the edge, her silver hair catching dawn's glow, her shifting eyes unreadable. For once, she said nothing. The fallen hero lay still, his redemption etched in sacrifice, his silence heavier than thunder. Kalen broke the silence with a weary grin, his voice laced with irony. "Well, if this was destiny, it owes us a drink." Seraphina's lips curved faintly, her sorrow tempered with fragile warmth. Adrian shook his head, though his mouth twitched with gratitude. "You kept us alive," he said, his storm-gray eyes softening. Kalen shrugged, dagger dangling loosely in his hand. "Don't get used to me being serious." The air lightened, if only for a moment, as laughter flickered like dying embers. Beneath it, loyalty held firm, a bond forged in fire and grief, stronger than prophecy itself. As dawn spread, Adrian and Seraphina stood apart from the others, the air thick with unspoken truths. "Our love defied fate," Adrian whispered, his hand brushing hers. Her emerald eyes shimmered as she answered, "But the prophecy is not gone." He shook his head, storm-gray eyes fierce. "Then let it fear us instead." Their hands entwined, warmth pulsing between them. The storm inside Adrian quieted, replaced with clarity. Seraphina's breath caught, her heart tethered to his in defiance of destiny. Together they looked toward the horizon, ready to carry both love and curse into whatever future awaited. The world stilled as the sun rose higher, casting light upon ruins and ashes. Seraphina leaned close, her whisper trembling. "No prophecy can command my heart." Adrian pulled her into his arms, his storm-gray eyes blazing. "Then let our love write its own fate." Their lips met beneath the dawn, the storm's echo fading into silence. Kalen muttered behind them, "And I'm still third wheel." Celine smirked faintly, her cloak fading as she vanished into mist. The final image lingered, two lovers entwined, framed by sunlight, their bond unbroken. Love had defied prophecy, leaving destiny trembling in its wake.